more than 50 years, scientists have been investigating one of the world's strangest unsolved mysteries. People from all over England, Australia, Canada, the United States, Europe, all reporting the exact same thing. A low-frequency sound that many people can hear and many others can't. It's simply known as the hum. Researchers have blamed the factories and the power lines and the atmosphere and electromagnetic fields and low-frequency vibes. They blame tinnitus. After more than half a century, we're talking 50 years, there's no single explanation that accounts for every case. But we noticed something.
Okay. Now, here's where the story does get interesting, because everybody's asking the same question. And that is, where is the hum actually coming from? What if that's the wrong question?
What if it is the wrong question? For over 30 years, we've researched dreams and synchronicities and intuition and human perception and vibrations and the ancient sacred sound known as hue. Not because we're trying to solve the hum, because we are understanding why thousands of people practicing one simple sound reported remarkably outstanding, similar, yet life-changing experiences. And so we took it into the lab, and then what happened raised another question that we didn't expect. You know, not what causes the hum. No, that was tertiary. But what if at least some people have been listening in the wrong direction?
We're asking you to investigate something because history is full of discoveries that really sounded impossible at some point, right up until the evidence forced everyone to rethink the question itself. Today, we're reopening one of science's oldest unsolved mysteries. Let's look at the evidence.
Cool, let's do it.
All right, we'll check that evidence.
Hey, let's start with the cases themselves. The sheer geography makes this so hard to dismiss. Of idling outside their windows, except there's no engine. They even petitioned Congress on this. The U.S. government actually investigates, sends in scientists from all over, you know, Los Alamos National Lab and Sandia National Lab.
So what did they find?
They confirmed 2% of the population in Taos could hear it, but they can't identify the source.
So the U.S. government really could not find it.
500,000 people, they can't find it. Now let's go to England.
All right.
Same decade, residents describe the exact same thing. Low frequency, diesel engine, selective hearing. Some people in the household hear it clearly. Some people in the same room, they hear nothing.
You can have two people really sitting next to each other on a couch. One person hears it, one doesn't.
Yeah. One is losing their mind from the sound that won't stop. The others hear silence.
Okay. And they're in the same room.
Yes, it's crazy. Same room, same conditions, different experience.
Right.
Entirely.
Some people can hear it and some people can't. And they're sitting right next to each other. That tells you a lot. That says a lot, actually.
It sure does. Next, Windsor, Ontario, Indiana. Windsor, Ontario, Kokomo, Indiana, Auckland, New Zealand, parts of Scotland, Northern Europe. Reports have come in from every continent except Antarctica. In Antarctica, you know, there's fewer people listening, so who knows?
There's only polar bears and stuff listening, all right?
The polar bears are there. How long has this been going on?
The documented cases go back to the 70s. That's 5 decades consistent reporting for people who have nothing in common, different countries, different cultures, different languages, different occupations, all describing something that sounds almost identical.
And nobody has solved it. Nobody. And it's not for lack of trying, you know. Acoustic engineers and atmospheric scientists, geologists, neurologists, psychologists. Hey, you're a sociologist. I'm a psychologist. Everyone's looked at the hum. All of them have produced partial explanations, but no one's produced a complete explanation.
So what does it actually sound like?
The descriptions are consistent. A low rumbling, a droning, the diesel engine, something between a bass note and a vibration. Some describe it like feeling it, and as much as they hear it, it shows up again and again. The one detail, it's louder indoors than outside, which rules out a lot of the environment, right? And the sources. Sound typically diminishes when you come into a structure. So that's weird.
Really louder inside than outside.
Yeah, which is one of the things that keeps breaking every little nice explanation they come up with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It really sets it aside, so you can't blame it on the noise and the outside environment. It's really louder inside. Okay, all right. Science has been at this for 50 years. What's the strongest case it's made so far?
Well, let's see. To be fair, each one, because none of them are wrong, they're just incomplete. In our opinion, they're incomplete. Let's start with the most obvious industrial sources, pipelines, mining operations, military
Hmm.
facilities, low frequency, like industrial equipment. These things can generate sound, that travels
Hmm.
enormous distances
Right,
underground through structures in ways that makes the source almost impossible to pinpoint.
right. And that explains some cases.
Yes, some. There was the Kokomo hum,
Okay.
cute name, was
Yeah.
traced in part to a Chrysler plant and a Haynes International Metal facility.
All right.
The frequency measurements matched industrial equipment. So that case was partially closed. But once
But not
again,
all of them. Right.
no. There's documented hum reports from locations with no industrial
Right.
infrastructure, like within hundreds of miles, like rural Scotland and New Zealand. So that explanation runs
Right.
out of fuel.
Yeah.
Microseisms. Let's go to
Okay.
that next. It's kind of fascinating. The ocean, massive ocean waves, particularly in the
All
North
right.
Atlantic, North Pacific, they generate a constant low frequency seismic signal. It
Right.
travels through and it's detected, globally.
Okay.
It's measurable and it operates at frequencies close to the hum, close to what the sufferers of the hum experience.
Okay. So the ocean floor is vibrating, and actually, some people feel it.
Yeah, essentially. And that's
Okay.
why this
All right.
phenomenon, it might be widespread rather than
Mm.
localized. If the source is the ocean, well, it wouldn't cluster around one little
Right.
area. Well, they're constant, they're global. So
All
if
right.
that was the explanation, then more than 2 to 4% of any little population would be hearing it. It would be more widespread, obviously.
Right.
And so it's totally absent in other areas. So that's not it.
Maybe tinnitus.
Hey.
Oh, hey, how about tinnitus?
This is one of the most common explanations. They always say tinnitus, and it generates, but it does. It generates that internal sound.
Mhm.
It sounds like the hum, and it's a legitimate position. Some hum sufferers experience phenomenon rather than an
Right.
external
Right.
one. And when they call it sufferers, they mean that they're truly like suffering from the sound
Right.
that just doesn't disappear.
Which is
And
why one person would experience and the other person doesn't.
nice. Yeah, how beautiful.
Exactly.
The internal origin, that's within yourself. And there's
Right.
no external thing required. And we're all unique.
All right. But
So,
tinnitus is typically high pitch, a ringing, a whining. The hum is consistently described as low frequency. That's the opposite end of the spectrum. And the standard tinnitus does not usually get louder when you go inside.
so that leads us to electromagnetic fields.
All right.
Our favorite.
Some researchers have pointed to very low frequency radio waves. The militaries around the world use it to communicate with submarines. These signals operate at frequencies that overlap with what hum sufferers describe. Could some individuals be particularly sensitive to these signals in a way that manifests a perceived sound? It's not impossible, but it has not been proved.
So we've got a list of these plausible explanations. Each accounts for some,
Right.
but nothing accounts for everything. So that's where 50 years of investigation has landed. Not at an answer, but at a better defined question.
Okay. So are you saying 50 years of scientists, they've been wrong for 50 years?
No. I think they've
Okay.
been asking an incomplete question.
Mm.
If your map shows half of the territory, you
Right.
spend your entire life walking and you
Right.
still never reach the destination. So sometimes, the problem isn't the scientist at all or the science, it's the map.
It's the map
Mhm.
indeed. And that's what we're going to really consider and look at. Maybe
Yeah.
on the map, we're looking north when we should be looking
Yeah,
south.
and nobody's asking
Yeah.
asking the
And
right question.
so where do you come in?
Okay. We don't come in with an answer, although we probably have one.
Mm.
We come in with another source of data, a viable source, and pretty
All right.
gosh darn plausible. It's what the entire podcast is about. Every episode, we investigate people who get blindsided because they ignored one stream of
Mhm.
data, one
Right,
stream of
right.
information, their own internal guidance system.
Right.
So now we're asking whether that same principle applies to one of science's longest running unsolved mysteries.
Right.
Yes.
And that's really the connection. Looking in the wrong direction.
We came in from a different angle
Yeah.
entirely. We weren't studying the hum. We were studying something else entirely for 3 decades, working with the sound, an ancient sound called hue. Hue. It appears across cultures, across centuries, across spiritual traditions that have no contact with each other. From Egypt, the Sufis, Sanskrit texts, the Bible, indigenous practices, multiple continents.
Right. So all of them arrived at the same sound independently.
Yeah, the same sound, different names, different frameworks, 15 different theological texts, but the same acoustic phenomena. Sustained tone, somewhere between a breath and a resonance that operates in this low range.
Low level frequency. And low frequency, like the hum, hue, very similar. What really happened in the lab?
Yeah, let's get into
All
it.
right.
Which we started tracking what happens. So we did the EEG. Okay. We've done a lot of different testing here. When people practice the hue consistently, we use the instruments, the EEG and the oximeter and, the heart rate variability, the whole gamut. And so we wanted to know what was actually measurable, not just what people reported feeling. These outstanding results, though, they did. I mean, better sleep and less anxiety and perception. So the EEG results, outstanding and not present with any other sound or vibration. Increased heart rate variability, your HRV, alpha, beta, theta, gamma, all simultaneously. All 5 simultaneously. We call it the hue effect. And, these states are associated with deep meditation, heightened, perception, pattern recognition, coherence.
Full brain. It has the left side of the brain, which has all your data and analysis, and the right side, which has your intuition, your feeling, all the things that come in inwardly. And that's what we've discovered in the lab with the hue. And it's interesting because the hue has that resonance like the hum, and it's a very low, deep resonance that we can feel. And if we listen, we can actually hear it. And it's part of our internal guidance system, the sound that it generates and makes. And we connect with that when we literally hew, and we connect with that internal sound that's already there. And it hooks up, opens our internal GPS, so we have the knowingness and answers to the things that we want to know without looking outward into the data. So what a lot of people might be hearing is that hum. It's not an outward noise. It's an internal vibration that's consistently there. People practicing this sound were shifting their brain activity in measurable ways.
Oh my gosh, in ways the instruments could track in real time. Not placebo, not self-report. We're talking measurable electrical activity in the brain, changing consistent patterns across different subjects.
Right.
That's when the question changed, because we were wondering, if this internally generated low-frequency sound produces the neurological effects, these fabulous results, what does this tell us about human sensitivity to low-frequency sound in general? And could some people report hearing the hum be experiencing something related not to the external source, but to the internal capacity that most people don't even know they have?
Right. So you're not saying the hum is the hue, although
it could be.
Yes, it could well be.
Yeah, but that's not really what we're saying. We're saying, where's the hum coming from? This question's been asked entirely in one direction, outward, external sources, environmental causes, and no one's asked, seriously, well, what happens when human perception becomes sensitive to frequencies that most instruments can barely detect?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So we're coming from the inside out, where they're coming from the outside in.
Looking in north or south direction, totally different directions.
We're not saying these things prove each other, though they could. We're noticing that several independent lines of inquiry seem to be pointing at something similar without knowing about each other. That's not proof, but that's a pattern worth examining,
So, walk me through the lines.
Okie dokie. Near-death experiences across cultures, across centuries, and across people who had no exposure, to each other's accounts, there's a consistent feature. Many survivors describe perceiving a sound.
A tone.
Yes, a frequency, something they describe as the most real thing they've ever experienced. The researchers who studied the NDEs, serious academic researchers at institutions, University of Virginia, have documented consistently that it can't be dismissed.
So what frequency would it be at?
Well, that's what's so interesting. Descriptions vary, but the consistent quality is depth and resonance, something low and fundamental.
Right.
rather than high and sharp.
Like the hum.
Yes, like the hum and like the hue. Now, does this prove a connection? Prove it? No. Does it raise a question? Absolutely.
So what's the physics angle?
Well, this is cool, because quantum physics, it does get misused constantly, we've got to say.
Right.
So we're not going to say quantum entanglement, explains the hue. But we are going to say is that physics has demonstrated that matter at its most fundamental level is not solid. It's vibrational. Everything we interact with as physical reality is at the subatomic level is energy. The chair you're sitting in, the floor underneath your feet, your own body, your blue jeans, your cat, your couch, it all has a frequency, and really that's all it is a vibration, a sound, a resonance that vibrates at a certain rate and frequency. And for thousands of years, without the math, without instruments, without particle accelerators, traditions have arrived at essentially the same description of reality. The vibration is the foundation of everything.
Sound, frequency, resonance. Is that a coincidence? Independent collaboration? Is that something else entirely? I don't really know, but I find it difficult to ignore.
Totally.
So what you're actually saying is that there may be a category of human experience, perceptual sensitivity to frequency, that science has barely begun to investigate.
Oh, totally. That's why we're here. That's what we've been doing for 30 years.
Yeah.
And let's be precise about this. The people report hearing the hum. They're not imagining this. No. Their distress is real. Their sleep disruption is real. The impact on their lives is real. And we want to honor that. But we also want to say the question of whether the source is external or internal or somewhere in between, a real signal and an unusual sensitivity, that question has not really been looked at.
That's because science has only been looking outward, not inward.
Right. So what we're suggesting carefully, without claiming proof, but, really something worth exploring, is the next serious investigation should look in all directions, both directions simultaneously.
You got to consider the inner and the outer. You got to consider the data, and you got to consider the intuition and feeling side, left and right brain, all one. What's really fascinating though is whether we're actually talking about a relationship or a dream or a career or a business deal or the hum. The pattern is always the same. People trust everything. They trust everything except themselves. They trust the experts, but they don't trust themselves.
That's why we're here. That's why we started DGI. Exactly. For 50 years, science has been trying to solve the hum by looking outward mainly, and inward with the tinnitus, but what we've already talked about that. And it's not wrong. It's just incomplete. Every breakthrough begins with one better question. What if? What if this missing data has been inside of us all along?
Exactly. And that's always what it is. We're missing data. And, that's why people get blindsided. And not because life never warned them. It did, but because they were taught to ignore the warning signals. Go, my imagination. They were born with it. They had the answer.
That's the whole thing. The hum, the dream you dismissed, the gut feeling you explained away, the warning sign you rationalized into nothing. All of it's the same system. The internal guidance system trying to reach you, trying to wake you up, trying to prevent, bad stuff happening. No one taught us how to listen to it. No one taught us that it was real, that it was measurable, that it was trackable, that it was repeatable, and that it could be trained.
Right, exactly. It could be trained once we know that it's there, which is the beginning to start. Until now, that's why we built Divine Guidance Institute, and we built it around that. Yeah. It's not a belief system, not a religion, not a philosophy, not a theology. It's a system, your internal guidance system, which is part of you.
It's on 24 hours a day, whether you're awake or you're asleep. So we built a 40-day process around the whole thing because the nervous system that kept you alive and keeps you ticking, it's the same nervous system that interferes with anxiety and sleep. Right. So we created the 40-day state shift. It's one signal for 40 days, new baseline, not managed, not coped with, shut off. That signal is shut off, and the new one to take its place. And here's what we know after 30 years. The people who go through the 40-day state shift, they don't just feel better, they see life differently. Life is something new. When they walk in a room, it looks different. Relationships look different. Decisions look different. The signals they used to miss, you can't miss it anymore. You're kind of wide awake and alert.
Exactly.
Once the system is on, it doesn't go back off. That's really like an invitation. That's an excitement. And, since it is the invitation.
If you've been hearing something you can't explain, maybe feeling something you can't really put your finger on, something you can't name, knowing something you can't prove, well,
don't explain it away. Don't rationalize it. Oh, God, no. Don't wait for science to catch up. Come find out what it is.
the 40-day state shift is open.
40daystateshift.com. Go check it out. If you've been listening to this podcast for any amount of time, you already know. You already know something is different about how you are wired, how we're all wired.
Right.
Yeah. And that's not an accident. No, that's your system working exactly the way it was built to.
So, trust it.
Trust your gut and save your ass. We'll see you next time.